Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of March. Where is my mouse cursor? Here it is. Let's go ahead and click forward and hopefully the internet will work. I'm gonna slowly make tweaks as far as the quality of service settings to just increase it by like 10 megabytes each stream until I notice either I've hit the maximum amount of bandwidth that I have anyways, or and no longer see improvements, or I start seeing problems. It does kind of feel like of the 200 megabits per second that I should have, really setting the QoS somewhere closer to 150 might just be necessary. There's just enough computer things that are always downloading something. Also had a unique experience with my dish hopper where it decided to glitch out and think that the hopper's hard drive was completely full, and delete a bunch of stuff that really it didn't need to delete. So I don't know what happened there, but best I can figure is some shenanigans happened or the hard drive is failing. Take your pick. We have like 6 packs here. So let's do 2 packs of this. 2. For the accountability section today, I have been playing Pinball Arcade. There's still a ton of tables to play. I'm doing pretty good, particularly as I started with the oldest tables, and so it's not surprising that tables from the 60s and 70s weren't super enthralling. But I have run into a decent enough collection of tables that are also just mediocre. They're not the best. So I have to somewhat wonder if sometimes after the third or fourth 30-minute to an hour long episode of playing pinball, if I've just not drained myself of the emotional interest and energy to play pinball. It probably would help me if I tried to start scheduling stuff in between recording episodes. I am also recording episodes now before I stream, so I'm getting at least one episode before I stream, and trying to stream closer to noon than noon, 1, 2, or in the afternoon, than streaming early in the morning, because that early in the morning did not really work. Of course, that's just another example. I guess we're playing Runecraft and Shadowcraft still. Man, it just keeps making me play Runecraft and Shadowcraft, which maybe it's trying to tell me something here, that I should come in here and fix my Shadowcraft and Runecraft decks. But I lost my train of thought there. The idea of getting at least a couple of recordings before a stream day is helpful. That guarantees, or at least one recording before stream day. That leaves it for better, more content and more footage happening. I saw an article saying that your playlist would show up in search results, and so you should focus on playlists. That's another great example of just like YouTube pushing you in the wrong direction. It basically is a case where you should either flip a coin whether you believe anything YouTube ever says to creators, or just do the exact opposite of whatever they suggest. And ironically, yeah, you probably would have a super successful YouTube channel if you did the exact opposite of everything they said. If you stole copyrighted stuff, if you had nudity, if you had sexual content, if you flooded it with advertisements and sponsorships, undisclosed sponsorships, if you're doing all kinds of trickery, like those are the types of channels that have historically succeeded in small bursts when they are launched. Whereas if you try to play by the rules and go for the long-term success, it's questionable whether there even is a long-term success at YouTube, but despite, with the exception of a few streamers. Like, you might very easily make an argument that even PewDiePie is not really destined for long-term success on YouTube. Like, because I suppose severely depends on what you define long-term success, though. Because I could totally see the argument that if YouTube were like any other job, you would expect to work it 35 years and then retire at 65. Do you 65 or 70? Do you honestly think that YouTube's still going to be around making PewDiePie decent money when he's 65 or 70? I don't think so, but who knows? Could be the case. And I suppose it doesn't really matter as far as the playlist suggestion anyways. I already make playlists, and I can say I've never seen any indication that people really heavily watch them or use them. I couldn't think of too many more playlists to make. Yeah, and it certainly sucks to be in a system or be saddled with a system like YouTube where it is just a lose-lose scenario for almost everyone. Okay, well, that's starting off fairly negative. There is also a kind of major incident that happened just a few hours ago. Some of the video game people are mentioning it, but so far there seems to be no real connection to video games, so I won't bother to mention it. Even if I do maybe have a hot take I could have with something like that. I don't want my channel to be involved in breaking news or drama, non-video game related. That's not what I set this channel up to be. That's not what I would want to do. Although, I imagine there probably is a lot of people who have started YouTube channels and podcasts and things like that, and over the last decade or two shifted heavily into just talking politics, for lack of a better word. And yeah, there definitely, over the past 5 years, have been several podcasts that have just shifted their focus so much and gotten so political that I've stopped listening to them, because that's not what I came to them for in the first place. So let's go through the video game news. As usual, there's a desire to finish as quickly as possible and get back to Pinball FX, or get back to scheduling. I desperately need to start scheduling. I keep saying that, but I'm not doing it. So we have a TechRaptor article. A World War II rebuilder is a different kind of construction game. Now, the idea of rebuilding, I assume the UK in particular, after the Blitz and bombings, somewhat interesting, but also kind of impossible to accurately depict. Like, you're just going to end up having scenario after scenario. See, in this case, you see a double-decker bus that's stuck in the ground, and you're using a crane to pull it up. I imagine you would have that same cleanup scenario show up multiple times in a game like that. There is, from my perspective, a fairly rushed attempt that happened to rebuild London after the bombings, and it contradicted with the old mentality that exists, I think, even today amongst UK citizens, in which they didn't want to build new buildings or use new technology or anything like that. They wanted just to put it all back the same way, which for living quarters, that was, in my opinion, the wrong move. So, as an actual game, I would be very hesitant to believe that this is going to be a good game. Moving on, ScumVM has an announcement. Nippon Safes Inc. is declared freeway. Thanks to the tremendous effort of Damiano Gerald and the generosity of the original game authors Marco Caprelli, Paolo Costabel, Massimo Magnicotti. What's funny is these all are like Italian names, and yet Nippon Safes Incorporated would be Japanese Safes Incorporated. They've released a freeware release of that game. It's a small but fun game created in 1992 by a small Italian studio, Dynabyte Division, Eclidia. Both the DOS and Amiga versions have been declared freeware with permission to modify the files, which makes it possible to disable the manual protection. Nevertheless, we're distributing scanned copies of the manual as well. You can grab copies from the games page. The game itself has been supported by ScumVM since version 0.10, which was released in 2007. P.S. If you happen to own the boxes of the Big Red Adventure and Tequila and Boom Boom titles from the same developer and have the ability to provide high-res scans, please contact Sev. So they don't even have high-res scans of their own product, which is not super surprising. So that's nice, and it kind of highlights what I think ScumVM has been incredibly successful with, more than even other emulator groups, is that they've been able to create a community and create outreach to contact people and convince them to release their very old games for free, which, in all honesty, most of the games that do get released as freeware for ScumVM are probably 100% pirated. There almost certainly was not a place where you could have actually legitimately bought that game in the past 2 or 3 decades anyways. The copy the floppy mentality probably had pirated it all over the place even before an emulator existed to play it. And in all honesty, these games are not that complicated. It highlights a factor that there is at least a small community of people that are starting to realize that copyright, as it's written in the United States, where it is 70 years plus after the death of the creator, or something like that. Well, I don't even remember how many years it is now. It's somewhere around that. Is just a ridiculously unrealistic time. Like, a game created in 1992 would be, let's see, 28 years old. Yeah, 29 years old at this point. 29 years of copyright seems much more reasonable than 70 years after the death of, in this case, I guess it would be every single creator that worked on the game. Let's do this. Do this. Do this.
A glimpse into the future is only the beginning.
This match is mine.
My crystal sword.
If anything, it probably should be 20, 15, maybe only 10 years of copyright for digital software in particular, or I don't know if you draw the line at digital software, or just 20 years in general for anything at all.
How did I lose?
It would be interesting to hear a counter argument from someone like Stephen King to see how and if he would justify that he deserves to still make money from reprints of like The Stand. And you could certainly make arguments to that, like the Stand movie, for instance, made by HBO, just came out last year, so he's still probably getting some licenses from that. But that wouldn't really mean anything different. It would just be a whole different type of world and a whole different type of system if copyright was only 10 or 15 years old. Stephen King could still clearly license, be a producer, and be involved with the development of an HBO TV series based on The Stand. It would just mean that other people could make shows based on The Stand also, because it wouldn't be in the public domain, and people would know that, and people would do a lot more research, as it were, to make sure that they're watching the show that is endorsed by the actual creator, or watching the show that is actually likely to be good. It would probably not be a scenario where the world would be flooded with hundreds or thousands of low effort fan made versions of The Stand, because you could pretty much do that right now and be fair use. You see that with plays in particular. Is it really realistic that somebody would have to license like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat from the creators to do their school play version of that? Like, is any high school play version of that performance going to actually be good? No, obviously not. There's no real competition there. There's no real eating away from the market power of the Broadway presentation. And there's just not enough stages on Broadway, the fictional Broadway, that they typically use. There's not enough theaters and stages in New York or in the world to really have enough room for a unauthorized performance of a play done by a bunch of professional actors. It gets fairly hard to even find a scenario where copyright really is working the way it was intended. It works for Disney, but it doesn't work for consumers. And arguably, it's not even working greatly for Disney. Anyways, that was too much of a rant. Here we have a game on Steam called Kiro Nico, which looks like a platformer game. It does kind of have a little bit of polish, but on the black art style. But there's really nothing here. It's $5.09, English, full audio allegedly. Let's see. Tech Raptor has an article, 10 more free PlayStation play-at-home games have been revealed. So we have Abzu, Astrobot Rescue Mission, Enter the Gungeon, Moss, Paper Beast, Res Infinite, Subnautica, Thumper, and The Witness, which, okay. And Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition, that's probably the biggest one by far. Subnautica is pretty good, pretty big too, and Res Infinite is a good game, but it's a niche. PlayStation VR only games like Paper Beast and Moss are gonna be less useful. Abzu, I don't even remember what that was. Enter the Gungeon. Yeah. It's kind of a shame that they didn't get that notification out of the new games to talk about the new games before the most recent announcement of more people leaving Sony Interactive Entertainment in Japan, because he could have potentially covered up some of that news.
Upon the wind.
Our bonds will never fray, you hear?
I meant it as a compliment. How did I lose?
Still not winning much. Because I changed around the outlets on my lamps, and now at the moment my remote control that turns off the lamps is turning off the power to my third monitor. That has created problems with the orientation of the three monitors. So I'm going to have to
Underestimate me.
figure out a way to move things around a little bit more. Probably won't be too big of an issue, but it'll be just using another splitter somewhere, I'm sure. Gamatsu has an article, Disco Elysium, the final cut for PS5, PS4, PC, Stadia launches March 30th, which, being called the final cut, is fairly definitive. Let's go and keep on playing, man. Sorry, went quiet there. Here we have a game called Zfest. I didn't really curate a lot of these games, I probably should have. This looks like it's a first-person shooter with some random characters, but I think that's pretty much it. Early access, $13.49. Says single player, but I think it's heavily focused for online player versus player. English full audio. Yeah. Seems like you're maybe trying to kill zombies in kind of a tower defense first-person shooter mentality. Somewhat similar to Orcs Must Die. But yeah, visually it just doesn't look like that would be entertaining enough, frankly. The constant grind on something like that scares me more than anything. It just screams that I shouldn't bother to even think about playing something like that. Next we have a game called The Last Act, which looks like it's a marker drawn visual novel from the looks of it, for $8.99 English only. Unimpressive. Let's burn through all this as much as possible. Now, I heard Giant Bomb talking about this, which is to admit, once again, I still have failed to stop listening to Giant Bomb. But I kind of have finally caught up on all of the podcasts I had and everything, so I am I think somewhat locking into a system of what I want to listen to, for better or worse, even if some of the things I listen to probably are for worse.
I go with the wind.
I'm almost always in this scenario where I want more time, but I want less time at the same time. I'm easily bored in a lot of scenarios, and I also want more time. My sleep schedule has been insane lately, and maybe I'm getting to a new phase where I can actually sleep straight for 8 hours at a somewhat similar time. But lately it has been very much wake up for a couple of hours and then sleep, and then wake up for a couple more hours and sleep again. Let's go ahead and do this.
The earth rains from above. Earth and assault.
Best of luck to you.
So yeah, there's this game called Stubbs the Zombie in A Rebel Without a Pulse, which this is the only game starring Stubbs the Zombie as far as I know, which this was using the Halo engine, as crazy as it sounds, because it was a team of people that worked on Halo for a brief moment. It's Aspire Media, and this is a slight remaster, I would say, of this game. It is kind of a great example of yet another old game that really doesn't have the most cultural historical relevance. We're starting to see an example here where history may just not forget games, video games, like other things. Or at least the process of something being forgotten is going to be completely different. What's funny is this does not have a follow button. Why is that the case? Why would there not be a follow button? It just says wish list or ignore. That is strange. But yeah, we may have things lost in archives, as it were, lost in the Steam database, but games may very well not really just be lost to history. As long as there is some kind of forward momentum with Steam, and almost all games, if Steam would have shut down, some competitor Steam would almost certainly take all that data and just copy and paste it to a new storefront. Windows being unable to run old games is becoming less and less of a problem. So licensing and just people removing games for sale is the last thing that still exists to keep a game from disappearing. They could cause a game to disappear. That and censorship. And once a game is remastered, somebody's put some effort into it, and once the game is released, it's basically free. It is arguably another example of, it had Stubbs the Zombie, which came out in 2005, only been copyrightable till, say, 2020, then it would have been public domain at this point, and at that point it would almost certainly never disappear either. Of course, there is also a possibility that just the internet goes down completely at some point, and all human knowledge disappears. But let's not worry too much about that scenario. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Exodium Episode 8, which, if I recall correctly, these are kind of nice looking asset flip games that he's flooding the Steam market with. We can easily see the release dates. Episode 11 was March 12th. Episode 10 was March 5th. Episode 7 was February 12th. He's not even releasing them in order, which that just seems like insane. As it seems fairly crazy. It is very, very easy to look up a name or a word specifically and see if a publisher is publishing 8 or 9 different versions of it. In fact, you don't even have to look up a word. All you could really do is look up the number 5. 5 is a great line in the sand to draw. Typed out FIVE or just the number 5. Look at every game that has 5 in it. Sort to that list by alphabetical, and then look at every single series that has 5 in the name, and you will get a hit list, a very easy hit list, as it were, to find games that are flooding Steam. Let's see. We could just do a bit of an experiment here. Anyways, so searching for the number 5, you get GTA 5. You could, alright, say Grand Theft Auto. Anything with Grand Theft Auto is fair. We don't need to look at this publisher. So a checkbox could say exclude Rockstar from that group.
Laces, everyone. Work starts at sunset.
Let's keep on playing. Skyrim, same thing. Like, you could exclude Bethesda, Persona, exclude them. Ubisoft, you can exclude. Capcom, I believe, makes Street Fighter. You can exclude that. Sid Meier's, you can exclude that. Now, this is funny. Valheim, which I believe Valheim is maybe a closer pronunciation of Valhalla, doesn't have a 5 in it, but does have a V in it. Earth Defense Forces 5 arguably kind of does flood Steam with low effort games, because none of the Earth Defense Forces games are great. And then you have like Baldur's Gate 3 showing up, that doesn't have a 5 in it, and War Thunder showing up, so their search is crappy, to say the least. But how quickly do I really have to scroll down until we start to see some things that might be slightly questionable? Let's like totally ignore things that are even possibly good. NBA 2K floods Steam with their garbage games, sure. Five Nights at Freddy's arguably does the same thing. A lot of the same things, but those would be exceptions that you would still want to say yes to. And certainly I've got this sorted in a way that is not working well. Well, I think I may have disproven my own theory here, frankly. I think what I'm seeing is an indication that the Steam search engine is so incredibly bad that unless you search let's see, hit that.
So much work to do. Kazaru.
So yeah. So basically you have to search space 5 space and then sort by name until you start getting something like this. And then now you start to get your hit list. 001 games, There's no reason why that still would be coming up, but whatever. 12 is better than 6. You probably would ignore that one. Labor of Hercules 5. Arguably something to look at. And once you had a list like this and you started making exceptions, then there would probably be more things that you could easily get this list down. I'd like to see how many results this really gives. Because even still searching, the search is pretty terrible. I did look up 20XX as a game, and it does look like a decent game. I'm not saying every single game that starts with a number or that has the number 5 in it should be removed by any means, but if you're at the 5th iteration of a game, that should start showing some red flags. And maybe they would have to change their search results here so that it only searched games published by that same publisher. Arguably, you don't even need to do a search then if every new game was looked at in comparison to what the publisher had already released. It would be very easy to also recognize something. Here we have DLC Bundle 5. That should be investigated a little bit. And honestly, Valve doesn't have to investigate a lot of this stuff. All they need to do is allow us to flag games that are just low effort. Just say, and I guess you kind of flag games that are low effort by simply reviewing them negatively if you actually play them, but that doesn't really help for a lot of scenarios when nobody is dumb enough to actually pay the money to play a game in the first place, if it's a low effort game, or when there's just so many coming out that dozens upon dozens of low effort games can just sit on the storefront. You know what Valve could easily do is just charge rent. Straight up. Valve has to pay rent on its servers unless it owns its servers, and even then it has to pay for electricity, maintenance, upkeep, cooling, things like that on its servers. So you could easily charge a rent of $9.99, $100 to get your game listed on Steam, every month $9.99. Anybody who's legitimate would have no problem losing $10 to maintain a game listed on the storefront. Whereas any low effort person would probably quickly not want to pay that $9.99 and would instead get delisted or go to some other place. And yeah, games like this, Seeds of Friendship, which looks fine for some kind of farming simulator, kind of asset flip, Stardew Valley clone. I imagine a game like this probably wouldn't want to pay $10 rent. I don't know when you start charging the rent. Do you do it when it's early access? Probably yes. Do you do it when a page is made? Maybe yes, at that point too. It's possible that they actually do charge rent of some sort, but I don't think they do. I couldn't imagine it would be financially valuable to list a game that's unlikely to even get $10 in profit if you're paying $10 a month. But yeah, that would be certainly a way they could solve it very easily. That would dissuade a lot of people who don't have confidence and not really just stop anybody who's actually making a good game from listing on Steam. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Savior of Sapphire Wings / Stranger of the Sword City Revisited, which looks like it's an RPG dungeon crawler. It seems to kind of be all over the place with the visuals though, and I'm not sure if there's actually two games here that are being merged together or if this is just one kind of low effort game. $39.99, English and Japanese. I'll put this on the fall list, even though it's already mixed, and we'll probably remove it immediately. I don't know. It's being published by NIS America, which that's a recognizable publisher, but I don't know if this is one of those JRPGs that would be anywhere close to the top 10 RPGs worth playing. Next we have RBI Baseball 21, which is also already mixed. The difference here is I don't think I have any desire in this year to play a baseball simulator game. This is from Major League Baseball. $29.99, bunch of languages, English, full audio. Does it have in-app purchases? No. I kind of want this to succeed. It's just a shame it's not being reviewed that well. So, because I want it to succeed, I'm gonna give it a bigger chance and put it on the fall list. It would be nice if there was one good baseball game at some point that I could cover. If I owned one baseball game and it was from like 1990 and it played perfectly fine in 2030, I would be perfectly happy with that, because I wouldn't care about who the players are or the stats or anything like that. Which is to effectively say that a Mario baseball game would be directly to my liking, because I would relate to Mario more than any other characters.
A glimpse into the future is only the beginning.
Okay.
Mana, come forth.
My crystal sun. I am beyond prophecy. Sand in my eyes.
Hit that
I
and
am
hit
beyond
that.
prophecy.
Next we have Jewel Match Atlantis Solitaire Collection 2, so we're still getting Solitaire collections. Although this one is kind of unique in that there are multiple Solitaire games being shown here, not just your standard match the cards that are higher or lower by one. Whereas most Solitaire games don't allow you to play Pyramid or Klondike. It seems like a lot of the other Solitaire games, it has a bit of a single player quest system. There's also Match 2 being highlighted here. So $11.04. It did cover Regency Solitaire. So I'm going to put this on the fall list because it's seemingly offering more. I have no interest really though with the Atlantis theme, and at a certain point the argument may still be Tabletop Simulator makes more sense.
Golly, it's chilly here.
Okay.
This match is mine.
Ooh, this is real scarf weather. You like the
Hit
cold?
that,
I
and
am
then
beyond
hit
prophecy.
that.
Hey, no dirty tricks.
And I keep losing momentum today. That might be the backside, certainly, of recording an episode or two before streaming, is that every live stream will be slower as far as the energy levels, lower energy levels. Of course, that could also just be because I'm waiting later to start streaming. And it's only getting hotter and hotter in my room. I think the installation of the lights might have been just too much. Suppose at a certain argument I could just turn those lights off. I didn't need them to stream anyway, so let me just... Nope, can't reach that one. I can turn one off and see if I start to feel a noticeable difference in the amount of heat in the room. It feels much closer to winter than summer for me to be this hot. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called I Saw Black Clouds. This seems to be a full motion video game that is seriously being acted. And I don't know if this developer has done anything before. This is $11.69, full audio with a lot of other languages. Let's see if Ghost Dog Films has done anything else. No. There is definitely a possibility that that we start to see more actors making full motion video games with branching paths, or maybe with very little branching paths and just actors acting what would have been TV shows or home or like low budget film projects. Particularly in the middle of the pandemic, you could see how skirting alongside the mask requirements and having smaller groups could be accomplished by going low budget and making a video game versus having to have like a SAG Screen Actors Guild shoot with all the medical requirements there. There's been a fairly long history of horror movies and indie movies that skirt around a lot of protective rules and do everything the wrong way cheaply. And yeah, personally, I would love to see more success of full motion video in video games. Although at a certain point, if that became popular, you are also going to have a growing demand for 2K and 4K footage. And you also have to realize that the writing and the storytelling in video games have been fairly bare bones their entire history. So, getting a good Oscar-worthy story in a video game is very rare. Let's just not do anything this turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Ecosystem, which looks like it's an ocean life simulator. Which, yeah, it looks pretty. I'm not sure there's really a game here. It's being tagged as a god game. $19.99 English only. I just don't see anything here I'd want to play. It seems kind of pointless. In the same way that I really wouldn't want an aquarium for how much tedious upkeep that probably would require. Alright.
Is that a human?
Mana, come forth.
I'm done sticking my head in the
There we go.
clouds.
See, next we have a game called Press Control, which looks like nothing. Let's see. Mind-bending puzzler where your avatar controls another avatar via in-game keyboard.
Unhatched dragon eggs.
So you're telling the character recursively to do something. $1.99 English only. Yeah, I think that gimmick would be interesting for about 5 minutes, not worth the $2. Let's see, 2 damage.
Time to tidy things up. Blueprints.
Do that.
What do we have here?
And that. I'll try to keep things more varied here. TechRaptor has an article. Integrate will be the only Final Fantasy VII Remake DLC according to Nomura. Which, okay. Good to know. But I wouldn't trust that as far as I could throw that, because let's be honest, that he's not the one that's going to make that decision. And if Final Fantasy VII Remake gets delayed enough, they will put out whatever content they can and call it DLC or something else. They don't care. The main goal is just to make sure something happens. Well, that.
Is that a human?
And then that.
I watch over the course for the sake of the future.
Okay. Is there a reason to evolve that? If anything, there's a reason to evolve this. So we can hit that. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Google Pay has halved its fee to 15% for developers' first 1 million of revenue per year. This is video game related because that means instead of paying 30% for the first 1 million of revenue, you're paying half. That increases the possibility of actually succeeding at putting a game on Steam, not Steam, but Google Play, and having it actually succeed. Now, inherently, I don't think it is a massive change as far as the quality of Google Play games that will come out, because you're still going to make way more money with manipulative in-app purchases and just flooding your app with ads if you're going to be sleazy about it. And anyone who tries to do a single one-time fee for a good game is just never going to succeed.
Don't underestimate me.
Not until we can create a market that embraces quality products, and we just don't on Google Play have a market that embraces quality products. Instead, it's cheap, low effort products, often purchased by kids, it seems. There's a Gamma Sutra opinion piece here, turning an audience into an engaged fandom the Monster Prom way. Which, okay. If you're interested in reading that, check it out. I'll go ahead and skip over that since that's not going to be beneficial to me, really, to read. Let's go ahead and hit
Stops
that.
me once I got my speedy boots on.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Pixels Can Fight, which looks like a Super Meat Boy style frustration platformer. It is $3.74 with a bunch of languages. Let's see. Have an allied amulet leaves play. Put a rapid fire into your hand.
A galaxy of gems tumbles and twirls.
Justice finds a way.
You wouldn't.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Exodium Sees the Frontline, which looks like it is a first-person shooter with also some maybe top-down RTS elements. Seems like they're overemphasizing the first-person shooting because it probably is just a real-time strategy game where you can control one unit in some times. Well, they are calling it an FPS RTS hybrid. Which that's an interesting idea, to say the least. $29.99, English full audio, third-party EULA. I'm going to put this on the follow list. This could be nothing, but it doesn't look like an asset flip solely. It could easily be a bad game, too. And that is a consideration. Alright, well, hit that. And do we want to do another rapid fire?
Rapid fire!
I'm just warming up.
What and justice finds a way.
Next, we have a game called 30 Days to Survive, which
Son of a gun, ain't ya?
looks like a low polygon game. Yep, low polygon, low effort game. Although being rated very positively for $3.54, English, Russian, Ukrainian. See, and this is disconcerting when you see this many positive reviews. 77 in particular is a very high number for a game that came out today. And shouldn't that raise a red flag at the very least for someone else to look at it?
The earth rains from above.
Because that completely screams
I'm just
that
warming
they are paying people or having people give them fake positive reviews.
My dear old home.
And see, here, there's a whole bunch of early access negative reviews that are not being accounted for. And that's part of the problem too. Steam has been far too lenient about ignoring early access reviews and allowing people to use early access
You are
to
done
count
for.
as nothing.
I'm very sorry you have to see this side of me.
If anything, it would be
Embraced by the earth.
Adieu.
what Steam should do, and this might be a little intrusive, is have people have a list to say, hey, this game has left early access since you last played it, reviewed it. Would you like to play it again? And if you play a game that you had reviewed while it was in early access, it should be possible at that point for a pop-up to show up and say, hey, do you still stand by this review? Just show the full review to the person again and say, we know this is an early access review. We know you just played the game for, let's say, at least 20 minutes. Do you still stand by this review? If you say yes, then it should remove the early access tag and still count that review towards what's going on as if it was a brand new review. Or if you say no, it should then say, do you want to leave the review as it is, or would you like to take it down? And then if you say yes, you want to take it down, they probably should ask you, are you sure? But yeah, asking people to stand by their opinions is not as crazy as it may sound these days. And I'm fine with them leaving a lot of reviews as reviews of the early access version of the game and not as reviews of the non-early access version of the game. But to just single-handedly sweep all early access reviews away and give a game publisher or game developer a chance to completely skirt the system is not really fair to consumers.
Mana, come forth.
To coldly go where no one seasons sleetings. I suppose I've lost some of my edge.
Next, we have a game called Mundane, or Mundane,
Stands with me.
which looks like it's a horror, weirdly animated game.
Your swords with pride.
It's either a combination of a bunch of weird assets, or it is trying to look weird to offset people. It's being tagged as hand-drawn, which I don't know if I really believe that. This is not what you typically would call hand-drawn animation. $19.99, bunch of languages. I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see. But that game also has 36 positive reviews already, so by my old standards, that would mean
Desert awaits.
the game is already acceptable to go to the wish list. So I'm gonna potentially have to
Galaxy of gems,
just
tumbles,
full on
and
reevaluate
twists.
how all this goes.
I'm just warming up.
Stand down.
This match is mine.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Stand down.
Anyone ever told you what a snake you are?
I present you.
Let's see. Next we have a game called Gladio and Glory, which
Stands with me.
looks like it's a gladiator arena simulator.
You're done for.
Doesn't look varied enough to interest me. I guess inherently a real gladiator simulator game would probably not be that interesting to me anyways. The idea of being stuck in a small arena fighting pretty much the same enemies over and over again is not very varied. It's free, English and Russian, so check it out if you're interested. I'm really sleepy at this point.
Some of my edge.
TechRaptor has an article here. Square Enix is going to start selling non-fungible tokens, which I haven't talked about those yet, but they sound like a bunch of crypto miner BS, and they sound like something that in 99.9% of all instances in which they'll be talked about and used, they shouldn't be talked about and used. There is perhaps maybe a blockchain argument to saying putting a presidential address on a blockchain so people could verify that that is an actual address from a president and not some kind of deep fake, where that almost makes sense. But anything less than that seems kind of ridiculous. The idea that people would have to use blockchain to verify their identity or verify the authenticness of other documents, it seems unrealistic and just a waste of resources and electricity. If you were going to use the blockchain for something like mortgages, maybe it would make sense. Things that are very expensive, sure. But that would be about it. Meanwhile, the way these crazy companies are trying to embrace new gimmicks and schemes to make more money is just slimy and sleazy, and so obvious. They can't make enough money selling physical goods as collector's editions nowadays, so they're going to sell you collector's editions in digital form. Well, regardless of my opinion, Square Enix is going to start selling non-fungible tokens this summer, starting with Million Arthur. And so what they probably are going to do is take the general idea of gacha and trading cards and turn those into NFTs. There almost is an argument that if like Magic the Gathering Arena or Shadowverse or Hearthstone, any collectible card games, decide to use NFTs as a way of trading cards between players, that almost makes sense. But the idea of using the blockchain even there seems just pointless, and security shouldn't be that high. You should be able to just accept that some trading cards in a trading card game, if you could trade between people, would get glitched and duplicated and hacked and things like that. And that would just be kind of the cost of doing business like it is now. The idea that Magic the Gathering in particular would try to have each card be a non-fungible token is probably something they would love to do, but it is also something that would only push Magic the Gathering's attempts to make cards more and more expensive. So, data for each NFT by Square Enix will include usage history, serial number, and more stored in the blockchain, meaning that each seal is unique and theoretically unable to copy. Yeah. Blockchain has just been this ridiculous buzzword. It's so stupid. What it really shows you and tells you any more than anything else is that Square Enix is the Square Enix we think it is. It is the Square Enix that we assume it is, and thus they have nothing going on in their head, and they have no concept on how to make good games and be a good producer of good product. And instead, they are scammers and schemers just looking for a new way to rip off people. And that's why there is a fairly long list of Square Enix games that are not good. And that's not exclusive to Square Enix by any means. And that is why a fairly long list of why companies like IO Interactive stopped doing business, didn't want to work with them. Okay.
Detestable.
Go ahead and hit that one. And then let's go ahead and evolve this one.
I must bring the meal before it grows cold. So much work
And
to
hit
do.
that one. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. My Games has nabbed a minority stake in Espresso Publishing to expand its hyper-casual business, if that interests you.
Attention everyone, I need to borrow
A
your
game
bones.
called Undermine is coming to the PS4 on March 30th. It's currently available for Xbox One, Switch, and PC. These definitely look like Zelda-like characters. I don't recognize this game though, for it to be A, already out, B, out and coming to an older system. It looks like it might be an interesting roguelike dungeon crawler. Doesn't look terrible.
Foul forces of darkness.
Can you feel the
Bow before
excitement
my
in your
tempest.
bones?
I guess I was thinking Undermine is on my wish list. Interesting. It's just another example. Something came out on August 6th, 2020, and I see so many games, I just forget about them. And by the time a Steam sale happens, I'll have completely forgotten about this game and only get it if it's fairly cheap.
sunset.
Coming for you.
Want to play? I must bring the meal before it grows cold. So much work
That
to do.
one.
Detestable.
Hit that one.
There's always tomorrow.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my tempest. Wind, grant them courage.
Yeah, I keep losing momentum here. It's sucky. Man. No. This is kind of an example of why an office job would just not be for me these days. It's like I would just get really sleepy and slow. Although I guess there are some office jobs out there where you can sit around and do absolutely nothing. I did hear a story of someone basically running their own side business as an IT person and not doing any of the IT work that they were assigned to do, because apparently everybody else in the company was so dumb they didn't even know that they weren't doing work. And yeah, I've seen some of that before too. Anyways, what I was going to say was I am starting to really entertain a possibility on the thought that the PlayStation 5 may be the last Sony PlayStation to get made. And I don't know if there even would be a third competitor to the Switch and the Xbox Series would come out as that third competitor. Amazon certainly could do that.
Don't underestimate me.
Tesla could certainly do that. Google would fail miserably if they tried to do it. Apple could come out with a console if they wanted to, and Apple obviously is somewhat thinking about that. I wouldn't be surprised if there actually was negotiations going on right now between Sony and Apple where a Apple
Do it?
PlayStation combination would get released, and they would just put an end to the PlayStation branding and instead have an Apple iGames, or I don't even know what you would call it, entertainment station system, IES. That sounds too close to IBS. Irritable bowel syndrome, frankly, though. But yeah, that would kind of make sense. I don't think Microsoft would work with Apple if that was the case. But and that is just speculation. But I'm starting to really entertain that. Like, it feels like at any point the Japanese offices of Sony could say, we are just done with video games, and we're shutting down the California Sony Interactive Entertainment office. In fact, that very well might be their plan to start with, is get rid of the hard to fire union kind of employees in Japan and instead hire like sort of non-union scabs of a sort in California, and then just lay off everybody in California a year later.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
There are plenty of companies that do stuff like that, where they move offices around for half a decade or longer, all in the plan of eventually just laying everybody off. Anyways, moving on. A Shiba story, a game about everyday life with a Shiba Inu, has been announced for PC. So this looks like it's a game where you're taking care of a Shiba Inu, very common breed of Japanese dog. Animation doesn't look particularly great, and the story doesn't look particularly that interesting. So, unless it is a pet raising simulator, which I don't think it is, I think it is effectively just going to be a slice of life visual novel, for lack of a better description. That's not that interesting, but we'll wait to see if it comes to Steam and put it on the follow list at that point. Here we have a game on Steam called Teomim Island, which looks pretty asset flippy. First person shooter with no enemies being shown and relatively little environments being shown. I guess maybe that's an enemy. Notice you have a health and a shield indicator in the lower left hand corner, but it just is full or not full. And looking at the video, seems like you shoot wolves more than anything else. And then some other kind of monster. $77.19 English full audio. I don't think so. I think I can skip that one with some confidence. 1 damage to all enemy followers. Well, we might as well do that.
Best of luck to you.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Destroyer of Worlds, which looks like it's a shooter platformer. Looks too zoomed out and pixely. $1.79 English only. Yeah. Just not enough polish there.
Well, I think it tastes great.
Next, we have a game called Contrast Tunnel, which looks like it is just that arcade game being remade.
I've been keeping this in reserve.
Yeah, it seems like all you're doing is it's an infinite runner where you're rotating the world, avoiding assumedly all colors of blocks, because clearly this person is not trying to hit the blues or the grays. 59 cents English full audio. Yep. Do that. Let's go ahead and kill that. See. TechRaptor has an article here. Evil Genius 2 Season Pass and Photo Mode have been detailed. Let's see. Evil Genius 2, the follow-up for the 2004 Evil Genius 1. A game that is akin to Dungeon Keeper or War for the Overworld world. Although, in all fairness, I just don't feel like Evil Genius has the same entertaining experience. At least Evil Genius 1 didn't, compared to Dungeon Keeper. I feel like the cartooniness of Evil Genius will still be maintained. So Season Pass will be a new campaign featuring a playable genius, 2 henchman packs, 2 minion packs, and a layer item pack, which that dangerously makes it seem like there's going to be microtransactions in the game. And then a photo mode is nice in all games, but I don't know why that would be a particularly large selling point for that game. Alright, let's hit that.
So sweet, you'll get cavities.
And then just go ahead and evolve it.
Come forth. Here comes the sugar rush, sweet enough for you.
Farewell.
So here's an interesting story. Gamasutra has an article. Alienware has ended its Riot sponsorship over sexual misconduct allegation, which I suppose fair enough. This is perhaps one actual example of a company actually caring about who they're associated with and who they advertise with. Of course, I don't too many people really care whether or not Alienware is sponsoring League of Legends esports events. I think we're seeing probably the end of esports as a growing factor anyways, with the pandemic and all. Okay. Wanted to do this, but does this make sense? Does anything I do make sense? Play this.
Uncharted desert awaits.
I can do this.
Spell looks so sweet, you'll get cavities.
I can attack
Sweet enough
there,
for you.
Farewell, dragon.
and then the turn. There's a follow-up to that story, though, with Riot that we'll talk about in a second, which is effectively that the allegations have been investigated, and the committee investigating it has recommended no further action. So we'll get into more details when we get to that article, but if anything, it feels like the issue, at least in Riot's mind, is settled in probably favor, mostly for the CEO. And yet, that didn't stop Alienware from stopping to do business with it. Like, at a certain point, there is just interference with another person's contract that is technically illegal, and more people are going to have to start getting sued for that, because there are definitely some people out there that are making completely false claims or exaggerating ridiculously benign scenarios into something else. I heard one story of somebody basically saying they felt uncomfortable because they were hugged 21 years ago. Like, they received an uncomfortable hug 21 years ago, said nothing about it, did not file a police report, but now it's with cancer culture and all that, they're coming out of the woodwork. Which, that's kind of the reason why we have statute of limitations in the first place. For as many bad guys that have gone free because of statute of limitations, there's been many more people that have not faced unfair accusations decades down the line. And so there has to be kind of a balancing factor there, or there needs to be a balancing factor there, according to the law. Moving on, 2K has acquired the PGA Tour 2K21 developer HB Studios and inks a Tiger Woods partnership. I imagine Tiger Woods being a sponsor of a video game still works perfectly fine, even if his most recent car accident leaves him unable to play ever again in his life. There are rumors that Tiger Woods in particular, and this isn't very video game related, but that he's been on pain pills his entire life due to the fact that him, like most athletes, are just always pushing their body so much. So he might be a candidate for a detox. Of course, you can't really do that if you just had a car accident and shattered your legs like him. So hopefully his doctors can do what's best for him and not what's best for his career. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Worms Rumble is coming to an Xbox Series, Xbox One, and Switch in 2021. So the Worms series of games are still things that are happening. A game called Hell Let Loose is coming to the PS5 and Xbox Series in 2021. It's currently early access on PC. It looks to me like it is. Oh, it's also a Team 17 game like the Worms game. Interesting.
Embrace your vast potential.
Okay.
Opportunities abound.
The city building game The Colonist is coming to PS4, Xbox One, and Switch in 2021. We have a game on Steam here called Red Ronin, which looks like it's a... They're calling it turn-based combat? Doesn't feel very turn-based there, but maybe the characters only move when you move. A turn-based combat puzzle game where you're slicing through people with a samurai sword. And then also apparently it's a box pushing game on top of that. Well, this looks like it might be interesting. $6.79, English, Portuguese, Brazil. Put this on the follow list. We'll see how other people feel about it. Yeah, we have a low effort laser puzzle game like so many others we've seen. And yeah, this does look pretty much like every other laser puzzle game. It's early access for no good reason. It's $8.49 for no good reason. And it's English only for no good reason. Right, let's hit that.
Embrace your vast potential.
And then, what else can we do? Basically nothing.
Limitless potential.
Wait, how did I lose?
Borderlands 3 tweeted this 3 hours ago, which is kind of an odd tweet in general. That it seems like they just felt a need to tweet. It says posture check, and then they got 154 replies and 200 retweets and 2,000 hearts, which does go to show that the world is fairly unfair, that somebody can tweet out such drivel and get such interaction. Unless this is a running gag in Borderlands 3, even if it is, like today is kind of like the worst day in particular to potentially tweet random nonsense when you could certainly be talking about more important things. Haley Benet, like for instance, I missed this tweet from March 12th, and I may have missed this golden key too, and that's really the only reason I follow Borderlands, and I don't even know if I follow Gearbox anymore because Randy Pitchford, such a hassle. So Haley Benet is a brand new role. What role is she playing? Is she playing the Firefly? Is she playing Lilith? The character is unknown, but she'll be key to Lilith.
Is fighting and despair
So
all you know?
we have no idea who the character is. She could be playing Maya easily. We know she's not playing Tiny Tina. They could be just adding a whole new character. At the end of the day, I don't think it's gonna matter that much. In the same way that the Monster Hunter movie has come out, and there's been zero talk about it and zero fanfare around it. No video game site bothered to review it or watch it. So it must have been basically a middle of the road action movie that barely uses its license. Very similar to like the Resident Evil movies. Moving on, here's that story I was talking about. The Riot Special Committee suggests no action against the CEO following an investigation. They have concluded no action should be taken against the CEO, Niccolo Laurent, according to the most multifaceted statement put out by Riot Games today. They reached a conclusion after an external investigation found a lack of evidence to back up the allegations of harassment, discrimination, and professional retaliation made against Laurent by his former executive assistant, Sharon O'Donnell. Which, this of course puts you in a weird position because almost certainly, yes, they would back up the CEO. But also, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if this was, they're calling her an executive assistant, but this is probably just a disgruntled former employee, a secretary, trying to, there is a very possible scenario where none of the allegations whatsoever are true, or the allegations are just so weak and just so normal that it was, his behavior was not in any way inappropriate.
But make it fashion.
So much work to do. No way!
So yeah. Let's see if there's any response by the other side. I suppose that's about all you can take from this. If anything, it's obvious that a committee hired by the company would be hired to self-police itself and say they did nothing wrong. And it does potentially make an argument for better government oversight of all businesses, and at least a kind of central 911 number you can call for the government to investigate abuses by companies. But while there might be something like that, in reality there isn't anything like that. Not anything that gets actually investigated. The move calls back the controversy from Riot's earlier sexual harassment class action lawsuit, where people were accusing high-ranking Riot staffs of inappropriate behavior, were pressured by a clause in their employment contract instead to settle the matter privately through arbitration. So yeah, Riot was the one that held them to the arbitration agreements that they did sign, and I think inherently there probably are problems at Riot, but I'm not sure the CEO was actually an instigator of that more than he was just turning a blind eye to it, and maybe that is bad enough. Yeah, the executive assistants worked for him for 3 years.
Come, Mrs. Mittens. We have work to do.
And she started a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is still potentially going forward. So this isn't the end of this whole thing. But yeah, you can definitely see if a lawsuit is still going on.
Look to the zenith. For there, I will rise.
If this lawsuit is going on, it's no surprise that their special committee would try to save them some money and side with the CEO, even if he was guilty. And then next, on a slightly better news, but not by much, Jade Raymond has formed a new indie developer called Haven Studios, where she previously was the Google Stadia executive and Assassin's Creed executive. And Sony is backing Haven Studios a little bit, which I feel like, once again, that might be a point of contention by the Japanese if they start seeing lots of cases of Western companies getting funded and supported. Okay, I want to do this, and then I want to do this to do that. Hit that, and then hit that.
Wind, grant them courage.
The PC Gamer has an article here. I usually don't follow PC Gamer. Doom Eternal director says that Marauder is good, actually. All he does is steer you into the fun zone. I don't think that was the reason why I clicked on this article. I think the reason is somewhere in this interview, the guy being interviewed points out that Doom Eternal sold severely better than the Doom reboot did, which that kind of makes sense because you were dealing with a known quantity at that point with Doom Eternal, and you can that would be totally believable. Tech Raptor has an article here. You can now play Conan Exiles offline, which, okay, that's nice. I believe they're also putting up an update to slightly change the game. They're still working on Conan Exiles quite a bit. In fact, if anything, I would argue they're putting far too much work into Conan Exiles when it's just core gameplay mechanic. It's still just a Rust clone, and that's not what I would ever want to play. Like, if they could squeeze a single player campaign into Conan Exiles using all the content from the Survival Rust clone and actually make a decent story and a decent game, at that point I might come back and play it. But at a certain, if they did all that work, they should just sell it as a new product. Here we have a game on Steam called Sun Sin Sim, which looks like garbage. $4.20. I'm surprised we don't have more games that are $4.20, English only. So, drug reference, I assume, on the price there. Next, we have a game on Steam called Deserted, which it's a fairly dark looking game, tagged as an action RPG. It's already on the following list though. We must have already talked about this. I'm fairly consistently going to end up accidentally talking about games over the course of a couple days. And that's just because of me trying very hard to make sure I talk about everything. So, like this game, Dungeon Delver, we very well may have talked about it and already ignored it. It's already mixed and doesn't look interesting. It's free, so I guess the price is right. I think we also talked about Rangok Skies as a shoot 'em up game. Yeah, this was the one that was bizarrely offset $19.99. All right. Let's do this.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my
Best
tempest.
of luck to you.
Where the wind blows, a path opens.
So much
Let's
work
go ahead
to
and
do.
hit that.
Haven
Breach of
storm.
Go ahead and hit that, I guess.
Afraid of the light.
Wind, grant them courage.
Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance launches June 22nd for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I did not know that a Dungeons and Dragons game was in development. I feel like there was a Dungeons and Dragons game that came out less than 6 months ago. But it wasn't by a Dungeons and Dragons label. I don't even know if I care enough about Beyonders and Dungeons and Dragons creatures to want to play a game set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. I mean, this looks much more high action than what you would expect from a Dungeons and Dragons game anyways, but at the very least, for somebody who hasn't played Dungeons and Dragons, this might be a easy entry way into the universe. The thing I would think that would have to happen is we would have to find somebody out there, some story in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, some book or something to hold your hand and introduce you to that entire universe, and also perhaps make it a little bit more modern and a little bit more interesting. And then you would have to also put an interesting gameplay mechanic on top of that, and I've yet to see that. Effectively, Magic the Gathering is the Dungeons and Dragons universe now, so I haven't had any major interest, or I didn't have any major interest in the storytelling and universe for all the planeswalkers and all that. Well, I don't have any interest in it now, at least. I may have had a little bit of interest in it when I was playing Magic the Gathering Arena, which I'm still not sure that actually came out on cell phones. I wouldn't be surprised if that was delayed. Gematsu has an article here. 3D jigsaw puzzle game Puzzling Place comes to the PlayStation VR this fall. Which, do you need to be in VR to make a 3D puzzle game? I guess you kind of do, because it literally is putting together 3D models. That's an interesting idea. I don't know if this makes for a better jigsaw puzzle though, or if this is more just an experiment in programming. It kind of feels like doing Lego without being able to touch Lego, and I don't know if that would be fulfilling. But since I guess it's a PlayStation VR game, I guess it doesn't matter. Here we have a game called Bebo Quest, which looks like a way too zoomed in pixely platformer. $4.24, English, Spain, Spanish, and Portuguese, Brazil. This was a big announcement. EA Play is coming to the Xbox Game Pass on PC tomorrow, which basically means you get EA Play for free if you're already paying for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate on PC and taking advantage of that, which is a better offering, certainly. I would like to see some parity there for Steam, but in all fairness, I guess you're not really paying a monthly fee to use Steam. I more would just like to see EA Play disappear and EA in general disappear. That would be more ideal.
Is that a human?
I guess the real question would be, what games are specifically on EA Play that would even interest me? See if we can search here. EA Play. Let's see. EC games list.
Did someone call for a genius?
See. List of EA Play games. That's probably the best one we can do. I'm not sure if this is updated.
My blade longs for the passionate beat of your heart.
Let
Okay.
the clouds roll in.
So here's games on Steam for EA Play. Rocket Arena, Jedi Fallen Order, I do want to play that. Sea of Solitude would be fine. Plants vs. Zombies, better for Neighborville, full of microtransactions, so I don't think so. Need for Speed Heat, probably not. Unraveled 1 and 2, sure. A Way Out, can't play that without somebody else. Battlefront, probably not. Fee, maybe. Mass Effect Andromeda, no. Titanfall 2, maybe. Mirror's Edge Catalyst, sure. Let's see, and if I click to next, why did it not load any different thing? This is the exact same list on the second page as it was on the first. Let's try that again. Peggle, Mirror's Edge, Dead Space, a lot of these are on Steam and you can just purchase them. Spore, Mass Effect Crisis. And this second page just does not want to load. There you go. Battlefield, Dragon Age Inquisition, maybe. Dead Space 3, Crisis 3, Dragon Age 2, Mass Effect, Plants vs. Zombies. I've already played. Yeah, so it's not like you have even a massive list of games on EA Play, so it does definitely make some sense that EA Play as a service could easily disappear. Moving on, we have a Gematsu article. Neo Geo Pocket Color Selection Volume 1 for Switch is now available. It includes 10 titles, including Big Tournament Golf, Dark Arms, Metal Slug, First and Second Mission. It also includes Fatal Fury, King of Fighters R2, The Last Blade, Samurai Showdown 2, SNK Gal Fighters, and SNK vs. Capcom, the Match of the Millennium. That being said, since these are all the Neo Geo Pocket versions of those games, prepare to be unimpressed by what you're gonna see. Here's the Neo Geo Pocket, 2 buttons and a effectively 8-way D-pad, I'm sure. These are the kinds of games that I think probably are more in line to be emulated than to actually be resold. It would be difficult, to say the least, to justify purchasing some of those, that bundle.
As my guitar gently beats.
That was delightful.
Is that a human?
Mana, come forth.
I'm done sticking. I told you to leave.
I think I'm pretty well lost here. We have a game called Where the Heart Leads launching July 13th for the PS4. It's a surreal narrative adventure game. No, surreal native adventure game from Armature Studio. Wonder if they meant to type narrative. Native means like Native Americans, doesn't it? And frankly, calling something a narrative adventure game is basically saying it's a walking simulator. And it does look like it is pretty much just a walking simulator with some actual interaction of standing people or shadows of people. That is an interesting thought. Should there be a division between walking simulators and walking simulators where people actually talk to you and you get a narrative story? I kind of think no, because any walking simulator that's worth its salt is usually always built around a somewhat interesting narrative story. Otherwise, it's just a asset flip game where you're walking around looking at random things. Moving on, Tencent, Sony, and Square Enix have invested in the cloud gaming company Ubitus, which I suppose that might be the biggest indication that if Sony was going to kind of take a step back and not make a PlayStation 6, they might work with Square Enix and Tencent for just a streaming service instead. But I don't know how in bed Sony wants to get in with Tencent or Square Enix. Could also just be a case that this Ubitus would be something that would be more of an Asia only or China only product and would never have a worldwide release.
When will this cruelty end?
There's an interesting announcement from the Godot engine, which I talk about it too much, but they've decided to change the number of one of their releases. Which it seems ridiculous. They're renaming 3.2.4 to 3.3, where it would have been completely easy to simply release a single update, a single change from 3.2.4 to 3.3. It kind of doesn't matter because they're working on version 4.0 right now anyways. If anything, what it signals is that they are putting their foot down and saying that they are not willing to make any more feature updates or pretty much even security updates for the most recent version that's out right now, and that they are doubling down on releasing version 4.0 when it's ready. That doesn't particularly inspire confidence. I've not seen an instance where somebody has gone back retroactively and renamed a version. And that seems very pointless and pedantic and childish, and that's not what you want in a software maintainer.
The earth rains from above.
Nothing stops me once I got my speedy boots on.
Got to roam in style.
Breach of contract.
Moving on, Akita Oga Mystery Guide, The Frozen Silver Bellflower for PS4 is now available in Japan. Also available for Switch and PC. This looks like a very Japanese game, so I'm not sure it would support English.
Today's
Yeah, English not supported. I imagine it won't ever be supported.
Embraced by the earth.
And it looks like it's a brand new game, even though it looks like it's animated like a 20-year-old game. Here we have a game on Steam called Orcana Conflict VR,
Hold on to your
which
cards.
looks like a real-time strategy, although it's tagged as an action-adventure. I don't see anything great here. $16.99, English, German. Looks fine, but the only reason you'd buy this is because you were desperate for a good game on VR. You wouldn't buy it because of the way the game actually looks.
A galaxy of gems tumbles and twirls. I'm just warming up. What do we have here?
Good draw.
A game called Noir, N-O-U-R, Play With Your Food, launches this summer, which looks interesting. There is kind of a problem though on just how much variety you might have on different animations of food. Seems like this is kind of a surreal puzzle game, maybe with some rhythm in it. Seems like it's musical in nature, with just some weird, maybe asset flipped visuals on top of it. Play music with your food, I guess is the theory. If this is something that comes to the West, it's going to be one of those games that is definitely just treated like a novelty, and I don't think anybody's going to actively be enthralled by it.
Mana, come forth.
A second wind blows.
Still have a ton of tabs. I knew I wasn't going to move fast enough. Not with the momentum I've been having today. Here we have a game called EZ2ON Reboot R. You can see it's 387 reviews already negative. It looks like it is a... Okay, I'm back. So my power went out. I don't think it's a big deal, but it is something that I'll have to keep an eye out for. It's fairly windy, and I imagine what happened is a tree just got blown over onto one of the power poles outside of my house. My battery backup, as it's set up now, seems to be, even though it's fairly brand new, seems to still be fairly useless, as it were. It seems like it has basically no battery to it. Maybe that's because I've got two TVs plugged into it and I need to turn those off. But at the moment, because of that, it has less than 5 minutes, and it needs at least 5 minutes of battery power, according to the software, to even try to shut down. So instead it just shuts down the computer like very abruptly. Alright, well, it looks like we're streaming, and I want to wrap up here, and I don't think I lost the footage, but I may have, so that might be an issue too. Let's see what happens if I reload this tab. Well, I'm just going to assume it is streaming, and then I'm gonna keep on going down the news and pretend like I'm streaming, if not. So we were looking at this game called EZ2ON Reboot as to why it just has such negative reviews already, and it says here with one review, always online trash servers mean you can't even get to the song selection screen without waiting 5 minutes each time. I managed to play one song in 17 minutes before giving up. Okay, well, I guess if you're gonna make a music game and then heavily make it dependent on servers that are too slow, that would be a reason why people would review your game, your brand new game, mostly negative. Now, what would really suck since the power went out is that my new router would reboot and all of a sudden I'd have network troubles again out of nowhere. That would be annoying to say the least. Let's see, we're looking for 1 victory or 2 more Runecraft, Shadowcraft victories in particular. So we're still cycling between Runecraft and Shadowcraft card decks. Moving on, Blizzard cuts 50 employees in move to reduce its esports business. This does definitely go in line with the feeling I have that esports has hit its peak and we're going to see it scale down more and more.
Don't underestimate me.
Mother, father, come on.
Let's see. The guy in charge of Google Gaming has put out this Google for Games Global Insights report, or he referenced it, he didn't put it out. As far as what are gamers searching, what keeps gamers engaged, what are gamers purchasing, what can gamers expect next. Let's see. And see, this may have more to do with Google searches than YouTube searches. Gaming chairs, headsets, phones, laptops, competitive multiplayer, up apparently 70,000%. Multiplayer games online, 1,300%. Yeah. I feel like these numbers are very, very rounded off. And I can only assume that that's because the numbers have been cooked. So is there any real insight here? I don't think so. Here you have a op-ed. Time is the essence in succeeding in China's competitive gaming market. Yeah, get in bed with China. Sure, that's what every company wants to do. It's worked so well for every other company up until this point. Yeah, Ryan Watt is the head of gaming YouTube that tweeted this, so he's got his own app. The line between playing games and watching them is blurred, and it's creating a world of opportunities. See, this is what I think a lot of YouTubers do, is they just make little pretty PowerPoints and congratulate themselves and have little circle jerk sessions like this, and they're spouting off numbers that they paid somebody to claim are true, and not a single one of them has a clue what's really going on or even cares to know.
A galaxy of gems tumbles and twirls.
At least that's how I think it really is. It's just nothing here. Yeah, they're talking about Stadia and just promoting their own things. I don't know why all of this is hidden behind clouds. I think they probably meant for the clouds to be lower down here, and the zoom on my page didn't account for that. Nothing
stops me once I got my speed
Yeah,
boots
it would
on.
be fairly ridiculous to believe anything Google has to say about gaming, because Google knows nothing about gaming. Google is a search engine. email provider, advertiser provider. That's about it. They don't particularly do a good job with any other product that they've offered. And I think it's only by the good deeds of others that things like Android have managed to succeed, and they kind of were forced to put a lot of focus on Android to make it succeed to the level it has. Otherwise they wouldn't have any ads whatsoever on cell phones.
Anyone ever told you what a snake you are?
Moving on, we have a game called Across the Demon Realm 2, which looks like it's kind of a hand-drawn hack and slash game. It looks like it's lacking a little visual polish, but it also feels like they're actually trying. Unfortunately, starting at $49.99 and then being 40% off for $29.99 is really just taking the piss, to use a British phrase. Across the Demon Realm 1 was released on February 8th and has no user reviews whatsoever at $49.99 also, and it looks like it's pretty much the exact same game. I don't know why you would do something like that. Dude, I remember this game. I put it on the follow list. It's an Oregon Trail type game. So how did the Oregon Trail type game get turned into a hack and slash game? It is just the same game with a different gameplay style. Well, that sucks, because I kind of like the idea of a Oregon Trail game. But now that leaves the follow list, because I've found the developer to be disreputable. Well, that's a shame. Gamatsu has an article here. Doom Eternal DLC to Ancient Gods Part 2 launches March 18th. TechRepto has an article. Frictional says that Amnesia Rebirth is not profitable yet. That's not super surprising, because that game wasn't particularly well received, and it was like the 4th or 5th Amnesia game released in too close together, and Amnesia Rebirth in particular looked very much like they had spent a lot more money on that development of that game than the previous Amnesia games. So yeah, they probably bit off more than they could chew. Also, I would say Rebirth implies that it would be like the reboot of the Amnesia series, but as far as I can tell, it really wasn't that.
Best of luck to you. You beckoned.
Let's see. Moving on, Gamatsu has Rune Factory 5. Details its battle system and more townspeople. This looks like a RPG game that's coming out. Yeah. Not really anything too interesting around it at the moment. Maybe later there'll be something interesting. Right. Wait till 6 points.
What do we have here?
And then kill that in the meantime.
Again.
still
forces of
trying to
darkness,
burn through
bow before my tempest.
as much games as possible. Here we have one called the Help Desk, which is tagged as a time management grand strategy game. Looks like garbage. It's 99 cents.
Wind, grant them courage.
See, none of these tabs are open now because of the computer rebooting. Here we have a game called Distracting, which is tagged as a social distance game, which honestly I don't think I want to play any social distancing game, free or not, English full audio maybe. None of that seems to really matter. Oh, I guess it's called Distancing, not Distracting, if I can read. But yeah, that doesn't sound like an actual game. That sounds like a waste of time.
Mana, come forth.
Let's see. Evolve, deal X to an enemy follower. X equals the number of things destroyed.
Pawns, make your move.
No more corpses.
Komatsu has an article for Anodyne Studio, announces a story-driven 3D platformer called Cephanine for PC. Okay. Might be interesting. I hate that there's a case here where I see a single image for a game though, and it's 3 females, and I go, oh, is this just going to be an SJW feminist game? I hate that it's come down to that, but it kind of has. So ignoring that, looking at it, it looks like it has some puzzles and then some parkour and platforming. But I'm not sure what the actual story here is. Let's go back and look at this. You have a female from Tokyo, Japan, a female from Taipei, Taiwan, and a female from Illinois. Unless this first character is a guy, which I think not. Maybe that's a guy, but clearly that's a female, and clearly that's a female. And that's an odd couple just as far as their different areas. Am I gonna be able to win? I don't think so.
Watch closely, apprentices.
This match is mine.
Make them wait for the boom.
If I'd played this, I might have actually done better.
You got guns. I've seen them.
Apparently there's a research trip gone awry. Which might explain the odd couple there. Yeah, there's not a lot you can say about a game like that though being announced. Though, because there's just so much still to see.
How did I lose?
Moving on, we have a tech raptor. Sorry, I got quiet again. Valheim players have built a functional roller coaster, which that sounds interesting, I suppose, but it is also makes me question what Valheim really is, because I thought Valheim was more of a RPG, not a kind of
Mother, father.
survival game where you're building things.
Ignorance will be swept away. Beat it, small fry.
And that is the kind of article in particular that also just is highlighting that TechRaptor is writing articles to catch trends and not really telling relative important bits of information. Because there's been like working roller coasters in plenty of games. It's not new news. If Valheim was the first game where a player could ever create a working roller coaster, that'd be amazing. One thing I thought about as I was playing Pinball Arcade is, boy, if Pinball Arcade had a table modifier / table custom maker, that would be great. Even if you had to work on a grid and drag and drop bumpers and things wherever they're going to go. If it got anywhere close to even the quality of Mario Maker 1, that would put so much life into Pinball Arcade, considering how it's so much a dead product at the moment, because they lost all the licenses to the Williams and Bailey tables, which basically means they barely have any tables other than Stearns that they can even sell. They never really remastered the first handful of tables they made, which almost certainly are running on a version 1 of the software, where other tables are running on a version 2, and you can kind of tell that the ones on version 2 are on version 2 because they have pro modes and you can fly around and move the camera and look at the table and see what the table looks like. You can't do that on the version 1, and that becomes increasingly annoying because the version 1 tables are some of the best tables, the ones you would want to fly around and look at look at the table art. Also, if you don't have pro mode for the version 1 tables, that means a lot of the tables just cannot change the number of balls at all. So you're going to play a 3-ball game, regardless if what you would have preferred to play a 5-ball game. And all the second version, the tables, do have operator menus, but it depends on how the tables were originally programmable, whether or not you can have a 5-ball game or a 3-ball game or a 4-ball game. And that it just depends on the table. And at a certain level, that takes the realism to too far of an extreme, because I would much prefer to play a 5-ball game with every single table.
Your defeat was foretold.
And there are some tables where you could easily add a central peg to the center drain out of a lot of tables and improve the game just by doing that. Most people probably would never even notice if you had made a custom modification to a real pinball table like that. And there's plenty of tables also where if you just change the angles a little bit, you could find a better angle where the balls would not accidentally drain and cause you to lose. Because there's plenty of pinball tables where you'll shoot up a ramp and even hit a standing target at the end of the ramp and then roll back down the ramp directly into the center drain or directly into an out lane on the left or right to drain the ball, and there's just no way to avoid that happening. That is just the natural direction that the ball will flow.
So much work to do.
Do I want to evolve anything? Or just attack? Moving on, TechRaptor has the Outer Worlds Murder on Iridanos review, which really feel like I should play the Outer Worlds. If anything, I think there's an argument to play Fallout 4 since someone gifted me Fallout 4 and then jump to the Outer Worlds and then maybe at some point go back and play New Vegas. With Bethesda now being owned by Microsoft, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new remaster for New Vegas, a new remaster for Fallout 3, tweaks and updates to Fallout 4. Here we can see they gave it an 8.5, say farewell to the Outer Worlds with its final DLC offering an adventure with full witty dialogue in the best location the game has to offer. Pros, fun, well-written dialogue, beautiful new zone to explore, good amount of side quests too. Cons, it's another mystery, and an unfulfilling one at that. Not many new weapons or armor.
I'm on a different plane
But the idea that I could play the Outer Worlds and not have to commit 60 to 200 hours in the game is also an appealing concept to me.
So there never was a mystery?
Which I don't know if that's true, but it feels a lot more true than trying to do everything in Fallout 4. Here we have a weird looking game called The Landlord of the Woods, which is tagged as a point and click physics game, and it seems like it is just a collection of either mini games or just a collection of weird creepy things. And I don't know if I'd really want to play a game like this, but I'd be convinced to do it. English only, I'll put it on the follow list. This feels like this also is a game that needs to connect to some longer running series. And so I don't know if Hello World connects to it. Doesn't look like it. Or Whimsy connects to it. But you can see that this has had very few people play that game too. So that would be a hard sell. Here we have a game called Crooks Like Us, which looks like nothing. Looks like it's a player versus player early access game for $9.99. You grab things and you try and stack them on top of each other, and I guess you're trying to run out of the building with them to the van. Next we have Let's Learn Zhangqi, Chinese chess, which is weird because if this is Chinese chess, then why do sometimes I see shogi being claimed as Chinese chess? Because I've always known shogi to be Japanese chess, and it seems like the Chinese sometimes were claiming it, and I don't know which one's more accurate, but I would assume that it's actually Japanese. Particularly if there's another game called Chinese chess. They need to get their story straight as to which one is going to be the chess of the East for your country. This would be another game specifically to evaluate as a game where it almost certainly wouldn't explain to me how it's actually played. $5.94. Bunch of languages, but oddly no Asian language at all. No Chinese, no Japanese, nothing. And that does bring you back to the argument, would specifically in this case tabletop simulator be better, or would tabletop simulator not work for Zhangqi? frankly, I would. Yeah, it does kind of feel like this might teach you though, so I'm gonna put it on the fault list. But I don't know if I really trust it. Let's see. Yet another teaser trailer for Akiba's trip, Hellbound and Debriefed. This time the master trailer, which I assume the character you play as goes by master. That's not completely unheard of. There's apparently a girl dancing behind the curtain. So maybe the girl dancing behind the curtain is the master. Interesting. That is one of the weird things about Destiny Child, is that the main character just is called Master. But I suppose it's there so people can relate easier and they didn't have to give him a specific name. A game called Out Buddies DX for the PS4 launches March 31st. We're seeing an increasing number of games here today that are being released for the PlayStation 4. So either this is a case of Sony telling them they all need to announce that their games are coming out for the PlayStation 4 so that we can clear the path for PlayStation 5 announcements, of which I guess Sony would then have to imply that there are a bunch of PlayStation 5 announcements coming, or almost every PlayStation developer has realized or decided that it's not worth it to have PlayStation 5 exclusives, or even sell a game on the fact that it is a PlayStation 5 game and PlayStation 4 game. Because it's not like these game announcements are saying PlayStation, I don't want to do that. Can we evolve here? Nope, that was a waste.
Where the wind blows, a path opens.
Right, well. Okay.
Detestable. I'm coming for detestable.
In return.
Wind, grant them courage.
Next we have a game called Tracked AR, which, man, I feel like every conversation I have, it just trails off. Man, today is not a good day for me. And doesn't seem like it's a very good day for this Tracked AR either. Several of these screenshots show the character running after his own bike, which you don't see that in games very often, or I've never seen it before at all. $22.49. Otherwise, though, this game seems very empty. If it is just a simulation of riding tracks, I don't know if there's enough there to interest me. And that is one of those scenarios where you're simulating something that either people are going to have very, very much familiarity with, or no familiarity with at all. And most people are going to have no familiarity with going to a track day and riding a motorcycle. Right. What can we do? We can hit this, and then we can do this.
I'm coming for detestable.
We can hit that,
I'm coming for you.
and then we can hit that. And then 1, 2, 3.
Guess you aren't all talk.
Next we have a game on Steam here called Vaccine Hunter, which looks like it's just a platformer shooter, zoomed out quite a bit. 59 cents, English only. I need one more victory, and I'd be done with all the daily quests, which would be nice. Still got plenty of tabs though. Here we have Beam Card Crash Derby. This just looks like kind of a low effort Crash Derby type game or car game. I don't know how much content you would have to put into a game like this to catch my interest, but it would be a lot. It would have to be very visually attractive and show off a lot of tricks. This is $1.97, which makes it also too cheap. It's also suspect since it supports Russian and Chinese languages on top of English. That makes it seem like a Russian troll game. Here we have Incremental Epic Breakers, which looks like garbage. It's free to play with a bunch of DLC, English, Japanese, and Chinese, and in-app purchases. No thanks to that. Here we have a game called Karma, which is tagged as a hack and slash game. It's got a lot of what looks like the same models. Yeah. This seems to be too simplistic a heads-up display for what it seems to be suggesting it might be. Yeah, this definitely looks more like a tech demo than an actual product. $7.99 English full audio. Nice thumbnail, I'll give it that, but everything else screams tech demo. Here we have a game called Wisdom for VR. You have this girl in kind of alluring outfits and all kinds of weird VR toys from the looks of it. And all kinds of crazy rainbow color effects being put over the video. Yep, that looks like an asset flip low effort game for $4.99, which is too cheap for a VR game. Here we have a game called Adios, which seems to be a narrative game as far as I can tell. But that's about all I can tell. So it seems like you're kind of in a walking simulator. $17.99 is fairly expensive. English full audio. It's an interesting story. A pig farmer decides he no longer wants to dispose of bodies for the mob, which I don't think you get to decide that. But I don't know if there's a real story here. And frankly, that's probably pretty good work. It's not like you're killing the people, that they're already dead by the time they arrive.
I interest you in reasonably
Places everywhere.
priced
Work starts at sunset.
Man, I keep losing momentum. Man, I'm almost feel like I need a metronome or something, just going tick 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 in my headphones or something. Something to just keep me on track and not have me go quiet like this. I either need a metronome or I need some kind of stimulants, some coffee or something. Let's see. But I'm not doing too bad, at least on Shadowverse, which is of least importance. Gematsu has an article. El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron for PC launches in mid-April. And I would say this art looks like it's been remastered a little bit, which we could kind of look at some of this other art and see if any of that looks any better. See, that kind of just looks like the 360 version of the art, and it won't, and that probably won't look too different from the way it looked originally, but or I guess more accurately, it might look exactly the same as it did before. And see, this is Lucifer, and Lucifer is kind of like a time traveler in the story, so he's wearing jeans. Even though this would be kind of set well into the past. Or maybe that is Metatron wearing jeans, and that's Lucifer. I think that's Lucifer talking on a cell phone. Yeah, that's Lucifer. It would be nice in this re-release if they could kind of wrap up the story they wanted to do, because they made one game, then I think they made another game, and it was completely different and kind of just a spiritual successor to it. But the story you wanted to tell, I don't think actually came to any kind of conclusion, and it's a very interesting story, certainly, to base a potential trilogy of games off the apocryphal, one of the apocryphal books of the Bible. But particularly when you're putting a Japanese spin on it. But yeah, if it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere, and maybe it went nowhere because it was getting too close to potentially blasphemy. Right. Let's see. Let's go ahead and kill this.
Can I interest you in reasonably priced souls?
Kill this. Attack here. Evolve and attack here. Super Bomberman R sales have topped 2 million, according to Kimatsu. Which, okay. That's not super crazy. Genshin Impact version 1.4 update is now available. There are now a new playable character and hangout events and more. I guess for the moment Genshin Impact is still relevant, so I'll try and mention things about it. OpenCritic has this article. The next batch of games coming to Xbox Pass includes Yakuza 6 and what else are gonna be coming? They didn't make it a nice list. Empire of Sin, Star Wars Squadrons, and Torchlight 3 and Nier Automata. And then on the 25th, Yakuza 6, Genesis Noir, and Octopath Traveler. Which it's interesting to see Octopath Traveler coming to the Xbox Games Pass, considering Octopath Traveler has been pretty much a Nintendo only property up until this point. And then later Narita Boy and Outriders, Hyperdot, Journey to a Savage Planet, and Machinarium are all leaving the service. Kind of sucks that Xbox Game Pass people are going to get to play Nier Automata and and I haven't gotten around to playing it, but I mean, I guess I'm just saying I'm jealous there, and that doesn't really matter to anybody at all. Open Critic also has this Animal Crossing New Horizons latest update arrives later this week. Apparently whoopee cushions are a thing in Animal Crossings. I did not know that. I don't know if people are still obsessed with Animal Crossings or if people got over that. Here we have a game called The Trivial Dead, which is apparently trivia questions with a zombie theme behind it. I feel like this is at least a visually interesting way to sell a trivia game, but I think it also is very much a gimmick. $5.99 English full audio. I want to see user reviews on this game though, because that's an interesting thought. The only other game that they've made was from 2016 called Congo, and it's mixed reviewed. And that was a third-person top-down shooter. Much more traditional type of game.
You look kinda haunted. No, literally.
I'm coming for detestable.
Let's see, can I survive long enough to do 10 damage? Probably not. Next we have a game on Steam called Rotate to Find the Difference, which it seems like that's too complicated of a concept. Like I don't feel like I'd want to play a game like that. It's early access, it's 59 cents, bunch of languages. Some games really are just making things difficult on you for no good reason. Here we have a game called _ Keyboard Commander with a K, which seems to be a racing game. Or a text-based typing game.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my tempest.
Yeah, this does seem like this is just some kind of ridiculous typing game. Let's see. English full audio. I don't like the visuals on it, frankly. I don't like the color palette. I don't like what's showing as a keyboarding typing game. Let's do that.
We walk hand in hand till death do us part.
6 random followers, then if any enemy leaders. Alright, well, can't do anything else, so just end the turn.
Wind, grant them courage. Love amazing?
Let's see, Gamma Sutra has a job listing for Demerge Studios. They're looking for a user interface user experience director in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
London Phoenix graces you with her
I am a curse incarnate.
Let the land be graced.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Droplet States of Matter. Frankly, between these two streams, once they get merged, this is going to be like a 4-hour stream.
Follow behind.
This looks bad. This might be a decent game, but I doubt it if the graphics look that bad. I'll give it a chance. $9.99. Third-party EULA. Probably not going to get reviewed well. A new job listing at Second Dinner is available. Let's see if the open positions were. So they're looking for a senior data engineer, a technical artist, and a senior product manager, all in Irvine, California. Second dinner being the Ben Brode company that is supposedly working on the Marvel collectible card game. We'll have to see if that ever comes out and whether it's well received. It should be well received. If the person in charge of Hearthstone makes a Marvel game, it should be well received. And I was planning on jumping to it, and I still am planning to jump to it day one when it comes out, but I may very well jump back to Shadowverse or whatever card game I was playing previously. If it, I don't know, is full of microtransactions or some other garbage. Here we have a game called Hollow Dive, or Hollow Drive. Looks to me like it's a platformer, player versus player. Free to play with DLC and in-app purchases. Nothing there that would interest me. Here we have a game called Mr. Walker's Basement, which looks like pixel graphics monsters. Very low effort asset flippy. $4.99 English only. And it's kind of a point and click adventure, it looks like, where you're just clicking on things. So it's not even an action game. Let's see. Oh yeah, Fortnite had a Tomb Raider skin that they're releasing, so this is probably a pretty big tie-in. And they tweeted about that March 16th, and already there's other things that they're highlighting, such as Hayes' outfit, which they tweeted 22 hours ago. So it feels like the DLC and the in-app purchases for Fortnite come fast and furious, although at the moment fewer people can play Fortnite than they would probably like. Interesting. Crystal Dynamics will straight up give you the two games, Lara Croft. Let's see. I think I own both of these though. Temple of Osiris and yeah, I'm fairly certain I own both of these games, but heck, if you want to retweet them for free games, that's not a bad deal. As a video game critic, at a certain point though, me not paying for a game and getting it for free, even when it's you'll get them for free just by retweeting, is too dangerously close to sponsorship and an ethical violation. So if those were two games I didn't have, I probably shouldn't retweet them and get it, and potentially endorse products and endorse a company when I'm trying to be a separate entity and a critic to that company. Alright, let's do this, and then do this.
Is that a human? I told you
Hit
to
that.
leave. Got your message loud and clear.
Well, The Verge had an article. NVIDIA has confirmed it accidentally unlocked RTX 3060 Ethereum mining, which they are trying to make it so you can't mine with their graphics cards, or at least the 30 series of graphics cards for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then instead they're trying to sell you a different product dedicated to mining.
Different colors, same great taste.
And then I guess evolve.
Mana, come forth.
I have no plans to address flavor at this time.
Let's see, Gamatsu had the Famitsu review scores, issue 1685, with literally only 2 games of Jakshion getting 36 out of 40, which is actually fairly good review level score, and Landlord getting a 31 out of 40, which is less than average. Interesting that they chose Landlord to use as the screenshot there. That also is incredibly small number of reviews, even for Famitsu. Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel Saikyo Battle Royale for Switch launches this summer in Japan, which maybe that means there's a new generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! Games. See. According to Gamatsu, PlayStation Japan has linked a PlayStation 5 lineup presentation file. It seems to have many PlayStation 5 games. Final Fantasy XIV, 12 Remake, Integrate, Resident Evil Village, Deathloop Returnal, Neo Complete Edition Remastered, Neo 2 Complete Edition Remastered, Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, Fortnite, Godfall, Demon Souls, Guilty Gear Strive, Scarlet Nexus, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Baleen Wonderworld, Destruction All Stars, Judgment, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Mobile Suit Gundam. Has Sackboy: A Big Adventure been announced before? Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operations, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Devil May Cry Special Edition. So that seems to me like a considerable lineup of PlayStation 5 games, which would balance out the theory that they had told all the people who are going to just release for PlayStation 4 versions to get out of the way and announce their games now. Almost done. Here we have a game on Steam called Goddess of War Ashley, which looks just like a standard shoot 'em up. $3.59, fairly cheap for a shoot 'em up too. Doesn't look particularly interesting. Let's see. A Sumzap, Dracom, and Bushy Road announced a cross-media project called D_side Traumery with a mobile game and an anime. I don't recognize any of these companies. Both are due out in the summer in Japan. But yeah, by the looks of it, it probably isn't going to be anything big for a while, at least in the West. But it might be the next big thing. You never know. This really goes to highlight how these production companies get together and decide to just make massive successes or massive failures, and they don't just want to make an anime or make a video game. That it's got to be a multimedia experience now.
Is that a human?
Like, what isn't that the complaint
So sweet, your
with
cavities.
capitalism in general, is that businesses no longer want to make some money, they want to make all the money.
Why'd it have to be
Japanese
a
production
big
companies don't want
head?
to make a good product, they want to make multiple good products or multiple bad products and get all the money. Take your pick. Dragon's Quest A Adventure of Dai, A Hero's Bond is coming to the West, which I'm a little surprised by that. They had announced like 11 Dragon's Quest games about a year and a half ago, and it was very questionable how many of those were actually going to matter and how many of those were actually going to come to the West. This definitely looks like a cell phone game that they're going to dip their toe into releasing in the West. This is another Square Enix game though, and it kind of once again highlights that Square Enix doesn't know what it's doing as far as a business. In the fact that they're going to try and sell a cell phone game to the Dragon Quest series, which is barely known in the West. Next we have Asian Mahjong on Steam, which the red and white aesthetic is kind of unique, but not that special to justify it. $2.99. English, French, German, and Russian. Oddly, no Asian languages supported. That's a no from me. Then we have a game called The Most Boring Game Ever, which pretty much I'll take your word for it and say no to that. It's free, and even at that, I wouldn't bother to ever play a game that is going to undersell itself by that much. I mean, even if that's a joke or being ironic, I'm not in on the joke, and I'm not willing to be in on the joke and give it the benefit of the doubt. Here we have a game called Combat Cycle, which looks like it is a fairly nicely polished first-person shooter from the screenshots, but almost all the screenshots also kind of feel like trailer screenshots, and I'm not sure that there's any real gameplay being shown. Like just a brief moment of gameplay seems to be shown, and then that's about it. $4.24 English and Chinese. I feel like this is being deceptive. On top of which, there's a problem with this game in that the environments that are being shown are all over the place. I guess I'll give it a chance, but everything's screaming to me that this is a fraudulent, low-effort Chinese game that doesn't actually play at all. Is it player versus player? No, it's also single player, it says.
You're mean.
In particular, it seemed like the enemies weren't actually walking around, so they may not have any AI in them. Exophase, not a site I usually follow, has got the trophies for the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, which, okay. We know that that's coming out. We know it's been delayed a little bit. We know it's not a reboot or anything like that, so we're probably not going to be surprised by the end product unless the end product just plays terribly. Here we have a game called Ballistic Madness, which looks like it's a 3D version of shooting missiles at each other. Visually it's not polished, and that gameplay mechanic does not work any better in 3D than it does in 2D. 59 cents English only. About 5 more tabs, I think. Here we have a game called Hunt and Cloak, which I feel like should be Cloak and Dagger. Saying it's an online multiplayer, it's early access, $8.99 English only. I'm fairly certain you wouldn't get enough people to actually play this and have a thriving community. Also some disconnection between the outfits the characters are wearing and the different environments they're in. Sometimes they're in the lab, sometimes they're in the Wild West area, which once again just screams asset flip. Let's see. Hit that.
Ride or die.
back up, Bear? You're done for.
I'll save you all!
Actually, a bunch of those tabs were not related to video game news, so actually we're done. I was trying to test out this extension that would let me draw over a web page, and it kind of works, it kind of doesn't. I had this idea, and I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but if you were going to try and sell this to Japan, the Xbox Series, which is too thick and frankly probably a little too tall, what I would suggest doing is having a overlay cover, kind of like the tissue box covers, that would take this section here and put either a Japanese poem, mantra, or an anime girl there, and do that in a light color, and then take this section here and do the same. Still have the slot, still have the button, maybe cover up the X play button, maybe not. And the reason why you would want to do that is because that would do the old magic trick of making it look like it was different things. You could put, say, instead of an anime girl, you could put the back of a manga to sell to the Japanese. It would just make the whole Xbox look smaller, like on a bookshelf. And you would do the same on each side, just covering the corners. Maybe you even, I did not draw that line particularly straight. But yeah, you put a nice bright white color in a straight line here, and then it makes it look a lot thinner. Maybe you put a logo or something on a clear acrylic in the middle, or maybe you do clear acrylic on the side and a bright white in the middle, but you make it look vertically like it's 3 manga books or at least 3 separate things, to make it smaller, and it would, or at least visually, seem smaller, and it would sell, I think, considerably better. Of course, you need a anime girl. I'll draw little cat girl ears, and this is an example of why drawing over the screen is not going to really work, because I can't draw with a mouse at all. Tiny anime nose. You would need some kind of character or mascot, whether it's a animal or a human. But just by doing that slight skinning, you wouldn't have to massively change the look of it. Whereas theoretically, if I was gonna just start from scratch, I would totally rechange the look of the Xbox Series, because it looks terrible even to the Western eye. This plugin unfortunately does not work particularly well, because if you want to put like a rectangle, it just gives you a big rectangle, and then you have to stretch it. And see, ideally, you might just have a pattern like the curtains that you see in sushi places and other kinds of Japanese restaurants that they walk through and see glitches out. But yeah, something like that. And there's no copy or paste here, I don't think. So I'm gonna have to figure out a different drawing over mechanic, but at the very least, if I was looking at a different page, being able to circle something is somewhat useful. having this blue bar have to be on the left is not great, but it's not terrible. You can't click and drag it or anything like that. And it doesn't save either, so like if I write something and then I toggle and then toggle back, it's just gone forever. Even though it says copy and paste should work. It doesn't seem like it does. Yeah. So there's some bugs. But I'll probably find a plugin for that. And then probably never use it. Alright, well. That means I need to load up each of these. And let's retry the connection, retry the connection, retry the connection. No reason that shouldn't be working, but we'll go back to the title. Seriously? Alright, well. I have no reason why the internet wouldn't be working right now, so let's just leave that. And then I'll scroll down my Twitter feed and see if there's any new news to talk about. ESA also talked about the big attack that happened today that I'm trying not to talk about. It is arguably being spun in one specific way, in kind of the oppression politics mentality, and it's being turned into kind of a race thing, whereas I feel like the people that were shot were more shot because of a economics and poverty reason, and a lack of protection under the law reason, more than just a race reason. But everybody always wants to immediately make it about race, when there's just no point to doing that. The actions that were done today would be unacceptable against anyone, regardless of their race or gender or anything like that. People need to learn to be a lot more egalitarian in the way they're thinking, and stop thinking via tribes and groupthink and tribal mentality. Alright, I don't think we are going to have any new news, which is a little weird. But it might just be a case of when I'm starting and when I'm ending streams now, too. Let's see. Do we have a new Humble Bundle? Maybe. Apparently, Dying Light 2 developer updated, sent out an update highlight, which people are not happy about because the update didn't really give a firm release date, and Dying Light is dangerously approaching the point of being in development hell. So yeah, we have a TechRaptor article here. Dying Light 2 developer update highlights fans' frustration. Whereas I can't feel the same frustration because I've not even played Dying Light 1. Steamforged Games announces a Sonic the Card game along with a slew of other releases. Are these tabletop games? Yes, they are. And see, I just don't know why there would be network issues with Shadowverse. Like, why Shadowverse just sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It seems arbitrary and random. Well, we do have a humble bundle here for the Curve Digital Supply Drop Bundle. So you could get the Flame and Flood and Hue for $1. You can get Table Manners, which is mixed, and When Ski Lifts Go Long, and Manual Samuel for $6.74. And then for $9 you could get Bomber Crew, Space Crew, Autonauts, For the King, Norco's, American Fugitive. Yeah, I don't think I'd get any of those. Anyways, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.